Now, when I heard that Netflix were going to be doing a remake of Little House on the Prairie, I was excited because the stories that center around the Ingalls family often express a lot of core values and deeper meanings within them. Pair that with the show being set in the 1800s, I'm down for the environment, setting and world that can be created. With it having 8 episodes that sit at just under an hour and us seeing the Ingalls head to independence to hopefully set up a better life, it definitely wasn't the easiest for them. With an ending that showed them leaving the very home that they set up and started, I wanted to share my thoughts on this remade series, the deeper meanings and themes that were within it, and answer if it's worth a watch. Here is a review of Little House on the Prairie and the ending explained. This video is going to contain spoilers on the show, so I'm warning you now if you've not seen it. The ending explained. The core theme of this 8-episode show is togetherness, strength in numbers, and how it quite literally takes a village to raise a family and make a home, rather than just yourself. We saw this on a countless number of occasions, with John Edwards being welcomed into the Ingalls family and the important role that he played in not only helping Charles with his own grief, but also with John Edwards finding comfort and feeling like he was able to live life fully again. Plus, I'd say we also saw it with the residents in Independence. The town was built off of togetherness and helping each other when they needed it most, and they all basically didn't have much. This, however, couldn't be said for the opportunist Eli James and the railroad company that essentially printed the flyers offering free land with the hopes of pressuring the Osage community by driving people to the land and building on it. Charles and Caroline were battling with the decision on whether or not they could truly make a home there because of the difference in conditions to where they used to live, the tension with the Osage community, and even things that were out of their control like the intermittent fever that was plaguing the town at points. But they ultimately came to the conclusion that they wanted to stay there. So when there was friction with the Osage community potentially not signing the deal to sell the land, tensions were high because the future then became uncertain. The Osage community ended up signing the deal to sell their land to the government at $1.25 an acre, but the government were then asking the settlers to buy it at $1.50 an acre, and if they didn't provide the money in 2 weeks, then they'd be kicked out of what they built there. The Ingalls family prided themselves on not necessarily having much, but togetherness was the wealth that they had and what they valued, so this was an issue for them. This was only the beginning of it though. The property that they previously sold before moving to Independence had the new owners default on the deal, which meant that they weren't going to be getting the money through, which they were relying on. And with Charles being offered a position to work on the railroad, the very firm that sold everybody there a lie, he wasn't willing to take it. He moved there to be with his family, not to be in a completely different state to them. As they were waiting to find a solution, Mother Nature intervened even more and caused a wildfire to take a hold, which ended up wiping out a lot of the Ingalls crops that they were planning on living off and also selling. With the land now also being tarnished and dead, that was when the Ingalls decided to sell what they had there and leave. They left with hope and optimism because they knew that home didn't just mean a piece of land with 4 walls, it meant everybody being okay and them all sticking together. And that's exactly what they were going to do. I believe they would have stayed in Independence if they could have done so because it was a town that worked well for them. However, their spirits weren't down as they had what truly mattered. The final thing that we saw in the series was John Edwards, an honorary member of the family, appearing to say goodbye to them as he was the only person that hadn't said his farewells, and he suggested an option for them. The Ingalls were originally just going to keep on riding, but when John Edwards appeared, he showed them a drawing of a town in Minnesota called Walnut Grove where John Edwards' wife's cousin lived. With nothing left for him in Independence because, like Charles, he realized that there was more to a home than just the land. He was going to tag along with the Ingalls, and with the girls wanting to head towards there, John Edwards led the way. What this actually did was it set up the 4th novel to be what is going to be depicted on screen in Season 2. This novel is called On the Banks of Plum Creek, so for those that are wanting to get ahead of the new season, that's the reading material that you can dive into. The final shot that we had of the season was of the Ingalls and John Edwards riding alongside one another, and the final shot just simply showed us that even after everything that both of the families went through, they still had that sense of hope and understanding that things might just work out alright eventually. Family is what's important, and with John Edwards losing his family in tragic circumstances, he's found a new family that he's got a sense of belonging in. My review of the show. Now, I didn't quite know what to expect when I first put this show on, but I departed it having really enjoyed it. I thought the world building and the establishing of the time period and setting was pretty perfect, as I felt transported to the late 1800s. I'd probably compare the time period to American Primeval, which was another show set during that time period that really managed to capture what I imagine is the feel of that time. The episodic structure that it had in jumping through time as the episodes progressed was handled really well. They never went too far at once, and I felt like we got to see some real human family moments that allowed us to connect with the characters more, such as Christmas. Through these moments, we got to see the love and value that they had for each other and why it is that it all mattered so much. When looking at how the season began with them quite literally having nothing, just a plot of land and a sheet to camp in, but being faced with wolves, fear, cold temperatures and also hot temperatures, it just got home how much they wanted to make it work in independence and that they were searching for a new, better life. Charles was a typical family man that would do anything for his family, and even though some of that behaviour was because of the guilt that he felt over feeling like he didn't look out for his brother, George, who ended things for himself, you could tell that he was just a soft soul at his core. We even saw it with decisions that he made, such as letting the thieves go without violence, and also not wanting to go to war with the Osage community. The casting of the character was perfect because the emotion was convincing. I just bought into him. Laura was also a character that was performed really well. Don't get me wrong, I did think some of it was a bit exaggerated, where she was literally giving words of wisdom to her father, her sister, and John Edwards, where it just didn't make sense at all. The experiences that she would have had to have gone through in order to have the advice at hand, in order to be able to speak those words, just felt a bit too far-fetched for me, so that was a little bit silly. But other than that, I thought the character was written really well, but she just felt a bit beyond her years in terms of her mind. One element of the show that I thought we could have seen a bit more of was the hostility and tension between the Osage community and the settlers. I would have almost liked an episode focused entirely on the Osage community and the impact that the settlers made by taking their land and just moving in on it. We got glimpses of it and we saw the disruption towards the end of the season when it came to the deal being signed, but I would have liked a more personal telling of it. I wasn't expecting to see an all-out war because from what I've seen when researching, the Osage community never actively engaged with war on the United States government and instead worked on trade deals and peace, but I would have just liked to have seen a different perspective. Another thing that I would have also quite liked to have seen would have been more of the treacherous journey to get to independence. I find it difficult to believe that the Ingalls left for the west and then there they were just in sound mind when they were on the edge by the river, so a bit more of the conditions and what they went through would have been appreciated. I think it also would have made the arrival at the destination land with a bit more impact. The core theme of this season being focused on family, togetherness, and how if you've got each other you can quite literally make anything possible was something that I really took away from it. It was inspiring, it filled my heart, and even though there were moments of doubt, moments of tragedy, and moments where it felt like Caroline was going to leave, we saw them all sticking together and making it work. It's a message that's just as important today as what it was back then. If you haven't watched the show, then I'd strongly advise doing so. It's a great series, it's easy to have on, and it fills your heart with every minute that goes by. Don't go into it expecting action, but go into it expecting to see wholesome relationships and a family dynamic that's inspiring to watch. So, there you have it, a review of Little House on the Prairie and the ending explained. What did you think of Little House on the Prairie? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.